Hello, Barry.
Good morning.
Alrighty. So I think I missed the tail end. You and Josh were going on about something, so hopefully that was productive.
If I can only remember what it was.
I have some questions possibly for today.
Oh, good, because I have no answers.
That's good. It'd be troubling if you had answers before I stated my questions.
Right. They have to be a function of the questions.
Ideally, yes.
I mean, there are people who will give the same answer independent of the question. They'll just
Yeah,
spout.
42.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I mentioned I called Sam Chan probably around Tuesday or Wednesday of this week.
You said something to that effect, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd like to check in on him again soon. Mr. Eric.
Hello.
You have a new Apple II background. That's
Yep, I'm presenting today at KansasFest. I'm
Oh,
doing my reverse engineering Doug Engelbart presentation.
Hey, that'd be awesome for you to record.
It's already recorded. I'll be doing comments, answering questions afterwards. So it's at 3:15 p.m. my time. So, but yeah, I'll send you videos of everything.
Is it open to the public?
On YouTube, it is. Let me get the YouTube link so you could watch it.
So it'll be live streamed on YouTube?
Yeah, it's a Zoom session that's live streamed. And let's see, where is it? Here it
Can we do
is.
that? I think we have the ability to do that also.
Okay, I got the Zoom, the YouTube link. So that would be like 12:15 your time, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, oops, I pasted it into the wrong place. Okay. I am going back and forth between applications all day. It's crazy. There you go. All right. Yeah, so you can see somebody talking right now, and then there'll be more throughout the whole day. There'll be presentations.
so this is an all day session. What's the proper name of Kansas Fest?
Well, it's called KansasFest because the person who set it up lived in Kansas City, Missouri, and it's right near Kansas. So yeah, there's confusion. Is it Kansas or Missouri? But now they're in Illinois.
Yeah,
So
but does it have a, a common interpretation of what it refers to?
it used to be like an Apple developer get together a long time ago, an annual developer thing. But now you have Worldwide Developer Conference for modern Apple, but this is all retro Apple.
Okay, so it's a developer conference for people who have retired.
Yeah, people who haven't are close to retiring, but are buying up all the toys that they didn't have as kids.
So is it what used to be in WWDC about 10 or 20 years ago?
Before WWDC was even a thing.
Right.
This is
That's what
yeah,
I meant.
when you had Apple II computers and people trying to figure out what to do with them.
Yeah, before there was a worldwide or wide world.
Hey,
Yeah.
so given that, are there a lot of Hackintoshes there?
Actually, people do hack things up. I'm trying to get an SE30 running again, so I may have to get that recapped. And then, but there's modern peripherals. They could redo the motherboard and yeah.
You have any of the original 1984 Macintoshes, the 128K ones?
No, I don't. But what's cool is you can now get a Raspberry Pi Pico that
It
emulates,
emulates that? But
and you get a board that plug it into a VGA monitor
you're
and you
one of
got
the
it.
few people. You're one of the people that might appreciate. I have three
Yeah,
of those
you have them.
1984 original
Oh, cool.
Macintoshes.
Very
Although
nice.
one is not original. One has been upgraded to either 1 or 2 megabytes.
Okay, that's a good, yeah. See it, like if it can run that 1 megabyte might be able to run HyperCard. Have you played with HyperCard?
I haven't booted them in like
Yeah,
almost 10 years,
you
you
want to
know?
take it to someone who knows the electronics before you
Right. But
power it
yes, I
on.
do remember HyperCard, and that was the first, hypertext thing on Apple. Yes, I
Yeah.
get all that.
Yeah, I learned it in college and I liked it a lot. And there are people these days who are playing with it, doing new things with it.
Cosmic Osmo.
Who?
So the
Uh,
guys who developed Mist, before they developed Mist, they had a very simple exploration game called Cosmic Osmo,
mhm.
ran on HyperCard.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, people loved HyperCard and they were very creative, but then the web came along and people stopped being creative.
Right.
Now you have AI taking away the rest of the creativity.
Hmm.
Yeah, so what you're seeing behind me, I created when I was 15 years old. Because I took a class that taught the graphics and programming, and I was
A
able to
lot
do
of
all this.
peeks and pokes.
This was AppleSoft. Yeah, just H line, V line, set color, and some high res graphics. Yeah,
I
there's
remember I
a
used to do some of that in
yeah.
not on the Apple, but on CPM, if you remember
Oh yeah.
CPM.
Oh, I had CPM. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the reason we got an Apple because my brother needed CPM to run WordStar for college. So he got the Apple and I learned on it.
I still remember the word star key bindings on my left hand to move
Oh
the cursor.
yes. Oh yes. Control
How many people can
Q,
claim
control.
that has still rotted their mind after this many years?
Oh, people loved WordStar. When you had a hand in a paper that
It was
looked
one
better
of the
than a
first.
typewriter.
It was one of the
Yeah.
first. And once you learn the key commands, it's like that seems quite natural.
Yeah, my dad was able to use it to print letters. He
Yeah,
had a
and
little
then VI
business.
took it all the way to the right side. Well, actually, VI preceded that, but can't complain about that.
Yeah, I learned VI in college. And so I used that as my go-to editor.
Did you ever learn Emacs?
I never did. My brother did, but I could if I have a need to. I'm
Emacs
sure
is an
I
operating system, kind of pretending to be an editor.
yeah, I've heard of that. Uh-huh.
There was a newsreader that ran under Emacs. The early
GNUS, GNUS.
Hmm.
uh,
Not
Net
NN,
no Net News. There was a Net News reader
NN, or
that ran under
NNTP.
Emacs. Yeah.
That's what it was. GNUS could read NNTP, it could read Usenet, and it could read email. It did all of that. Yes.
Mhm.
And now the current versions of Emacs have not just, uh, bit fonts. They actually have real fonts and real images. So
Mhm.
that was a huge step forward when it finally ended up doing that. I forget which version was that upgrade.
Hmm.
Anyway, I'm
So
bringing up
could
notes.
we build NLS in Emacs?
You could
You could.
completely believe it. There's
Wow.
no doubt about it. There's no doubt
Hmm.
about it. You got control over buffers. You got control over any content. You got control writing any functional piece of operations and
Hmm.
activities, and
Yeah, and make
got
network
it all.
calls, APIs, whatever you
You've
need.
got it all. You've got it all.
Nice.
And you got the whole, because it's that you can have whole event workflows, driving everything.
Mm. Okay.
Yes. But
Yeah, once saw like Emacs in 2 pages, a cheat sheet, and but I never really studied it.
well, if you use Emacs info, that gets you pretty good intro.
Okay, good.
And pretty much everybody just does the Emacs intro, command I,
Okay.
and then you go into it.
Oh, that's
Install
cool.
it,
Yeah.
just do the intro, you'll get the basics.
Yep. Yeah, it's fascinating how the tools keep coming back. The good tools have a little cycle around
Emacs
the.
never left. It just
Yeah, I
always
know.
hung around.
Right, you have your diehard users keeping it alive.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. Okay. By the way, Eric, for you personally, I did finally complete my CCC
Oh, great.
review. So I have that ready to send you. I felt so guilty
Mhm.
the last several weeks. I've actually spent some time this week doing it. It's not at a great level of detail, but at least I've made a pass through the entire thing and I'm ready to
Yep.
send it to you. And the cool thing is now what happens when we start ping-ponging back and forth. Okay.
Yep.
So
So
that
what I want to check is how do you prefer to communicate to when you're collaborating with people?
bingo. So I have a blog that I don't know if I've sent to you, but in 2005, I wrote up something like the 9 artifacts. It started as
Yep.
now it's the 9 artifacts for
Yeah, I
how you
remember
start
that.
a team. Yeah. So setting up shared memory is one of the very first things to do. And it's basically a proposal that I can put into the CCC to say, hey, why don't we use Google Calendar for tracking, a meeting?
Yeah.
Why do we
Right.
use something like Google Drive to put our notes? Why do we use Zoom as a communication mechanism? Why don't we use blah, 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 workflow as a note-taking, whatever it is, okay? So
Yeah, I'm
there's
asking
a
like the
number of things.
equivalent of email. Like, what do you prefer? Do you still prefer email or do
No, in
you
fact,
prefer?
I hate email because I
Yeah.
have a rant. I think it's rant number 2 called
Uh-huh.
Copy is Evil.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
So what would you rather do for
I would rather
communication?
have something that has a centralized, authoritative,
Hmm.
globally and persistently addressable repository like
Yep.
a DKR, but there aren't very many good ones right now. So Workflowy can suffice, although it's not great for chat. Slack can suffice. GitHub messaging. GitHub is actually not a bad place since it's right next to
Yeah.
other artifacts. So anyway,
Yeah, that's
those
a
are
good
some of the things
idea.
that I can propose. Either because one of the items is where do we prefer to work? Okay, in this.
Yeah, sure.
So that's
Yeah, if
one thing
you,
where to say,
yeah,
I
I'll take
suppose we.
guidance from you. I'd like to play with a few new things
Yeah,
and
I'm very
see.
opinionated, but I'm also very open. Okay,
Yep.
all right,
Good.
yeah. In fact, that's the strong beliefs or strong thoughts loosely held. Right? Remember that claim.
Yeah,
Hmm.
although I don't think
So
I know what it means, but yeah.
yeah. So as long as there's something that's, very, very compelling, but you're very open and you can actually, engage and refine, that's the way I want to be.
Yeah, it seems we have to keep evaluating new things coming down the pike and
Yeah.
seeing, okay, is it worth switching? Is it
That's another
worth,
smart people problem, by the way. I've suffered
yeah,
that for my entire career because I
yep,
try to adopt new things and therefore I lose some history.
yep,
It's hard to
yep.
migrate to some of the new stuff,
That's
which
why
is
the
why Emacs
decentralized
is
web
one of
would
them.
be great. You keep your data, you just get new applications that use the same data.
Right.
You could try both, see what
So
you
by the
like.
way, GitHub is
There
a
was an item that came up on Facebook history, items in years before. And one that came up today was the relationship between dogmatism and critical thinking. And the hypothesis is the better your critical thinking, the lower is your likelihood to be dogmatic.
Mhm.
there's an inverse correlation there, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are kids coming out of university dogmatic, and then they have to spend their career making mistakes until they learn to critically think?
Well, the real question is, if people are really dogmatic to begin with, introducing critical thinking basically has no effect on them or negligible effect. They're simply not moved by critical thinking arguments.
Yeah, there
Yeah, I'm
is
just
something going
wondering.
around on the internet saying basically if people don't make their opinions based on information or logic, you can't use information or logic to change their
Yeah.
position.
And that's where we are. We have this polarization of these dogmatic tribes, and neither of the twain shall meet. They just basically operate as independent worlds,
Yeah.
not interacting, except that
Which
they
is
can.
why when people say, why do you keep trying with those people? I say, I direct my responses to those people, but it's really meant for other people who are watching,
Yeah,
not
exactly.
directly.
It's for the audience. It's for the benefit of the audience.
Right, right. So, glad to see both of you. I have a couple of things that I was curious about. Um, One thing that I was talking about previously, I don't know if I ever brought it up, was the relationship between conflict resolution and humor. It appears that humor is effective in dealing with conflict or disagreement.
Yeah.
How you do so could misfire or could be leveraged well. And that's one possible topic I was very curious about. Okay.
Yeah. It's an art. The art of humor
Right.
uh, is very powerful, but it's not an easy art to master.
Right.
It depends on the audience, how
Right.
well they take it.
and how clever or subtle the comedian is, the
Right.
humorist is. So if you look at sort of classical humorists, Mark Twain, and you could probably make a short list of famous humorists and study,
Mhm.
how
So
clever they were, how subtle they were.
with this Apple II community, we've had people who love to create puns, and there were emails before the event, all kinds of puns going back and forth. It was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
making
the link
people
I
think.
just posted is an article about that. So I
Uh-huh.
think one of you may
It's-
have posted this originally. I forget exactly where I got this from.
Oh, is that the one? Yeah, is that the one that came out? Oh, no, 2016. No, sorry, that's an old one.
Yeah, Jeffrey Rubin, can humor help resolve conflicts from insults to respect?
Yeah, he published something just yesterday in one of your groups, the Grokking one, I think. But that's a new one.
Yeah, I found this old one. I forget exactly where I did.
Yeah.
So that's one possible topic that I was curious about. And I think it would help with the thing that you keep saying, Barry, which is if you can't do the deep critical model-based reasoning slash interaction, a story
Yeah.
would be a good approach. And then injecting humor into that story is clearly going to affect its
Entertaining
reception.
stories can gain a huge audience, but it ain't easy
Mhm.
to turn an insight into a quality entertaining story that delivers the insight to a general audience. That's
Okay.
really quite an art.
So let me talk about one very simple and very obvious technique. Okay, one is to make a point, tell a story or make a point or give an example where that particular thing is taken to an extreme, right? Reductio ad absurdum, right? In
Yep,
the form,
I do that a lot.
right? So that could make somebody say, oh, geez, yeah, you're right. Or it could definitely misfire as well. So that's one thing I was curious about. How do you do that well?
And it's harder to do
My
that in
proposal
text.
is stay away from mathematics, because if the more mathematics, the less likely it's going to work.
I remember like trying to post things in the early days of the internet and then explaining myself that I'm doing reductio ad absurdum, but people don't get it through text.
They really don't. And because you got such a wide spectrum of audience, some people will get it, some people clearly won't. And you're always going to have that spectrum.
Yeah, and I'm finding I have people keep asking me questions about things I post in chat with this event. And yeah, I'm realizing, wow, I'm not explaining things clearly enough.
Mhm.
I'm using like references that they wouldn't understand or things that I'm
I
assuming
see.
things about the audience, and it's a younger audience now than a few years ago. So interesting.
Yeah, if you use any
Self-reflection.
20th century stuff like quantum mechanics, relativity, or Gödel's theorem, you've lost 95% of your audience.
Mhm.
You just can't, even though those are
Right.
very powerful insights.
Right, but these are people who don't know what an Altair is or the Dazzler, that came up in one of the sessions.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Kayla.
no one could figure out what we were talking about.
Hey,
Are you still
Kayla,
in Banff?
Who's here?
No, not in Banff. Back.
Ah,
Are you
I
home?
like I like seeing all the pictures of food, all the different food stands that you're posting.
I have more pictures of food. I just didn't feel like posting it all.
there's some cheese over here. Yeah, it's got a mouse on top of it.
Poutine.
There's some fish over there this way. Yeah, the dog up there.
Nice.
No, 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 no. A
You weren't,
Frogger.
you
Remember
weren't that far
Frogger?
from Jasper, and Jasper had a terrible fire the last couple of days.
The funny thing was we were supposed to go to Jasper, but I was like, no, I want to see Lake Louise and Moraine Lake. And it was a good thing
Yeah, it would have
did.
been pretty grim.
I know. So things happen for a reason, eh?
Yeah, but not for a favorable reason.
So we were just touching on how we inject humor into discourse where there is some small or large disagreement or whether there's some clarification required and what skill set helps with the humor because humor can definitely backfire, as you know, most of us have probably seen.
Yeah.
And so
Sure.
I'm trying to say, how do you avoid sardonic, responses or sarcastic responses? Or, how do you cross the line? How do you stay, on this side of the line when you try to inject humor into conversations like that? So,
Or dismissive responses, which are very
exactly.
common. People can just dismiss things and then, end of conversation.
And I found sometimes I go too far with the humor where I shouldn't have. Maybe a little bit in a team meeting, but then I got to stop at some point.
Was it yesterday I was mentioning that, or with someone else? I think it was with someone else. We were talking about humor, and there's a particular brand of humor that I just don't get any fun out of, and that's insult humor, the Don Rickles type humor, the put
Yeah.
down humor, the ego-based humor, like yo mama, that sort of thing, or I did this, or whatever. Okay, so that's definitely, in my view, something that misfires with me. It may not misfire with everybody. So that's a point to say, hey, you got to be sensitive of who your audience is, because if I'm in the audience, I'm not going to out and out, just say, hey, I'm offended. It's not the way I am. But it's not the kind of stuff that's actually going to get me on board if that's what you end up saying to me over.
Joshing and jesting, it's a very tricky kind of humor.
And ethnic humor as well. And what was I thinking of? Schadenfreude. Does everybody know what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goes along with our Weltanschauung. So I guess there's nothing more to be said about that topic.
Well, has
know,
humor been killed by the society we live in these days? Like it seems like
Sometimes.
yeah, I don't feel like it's safe to be humorous these days.
It's tricky to be humorous and get away with it. Be
And
effective.
this whole political correctness phenomenon, where you're viewed as a Karen if you make certain statements, or Kevin or Karen. I think it's both.
Yeah, and I didn't like using names like that when it first came out.
I'm referring to how the media refers to it.
Yeah, so some people are making up new words and definitions for things and not telling
Oh,
us.
brat. That's the newest one. What the hell does the word brat mean?
Yeah, exactly. I've never been brat. Do I want to be brat? I don't know.
I didn't hear that one. Where'd that come from?
Yeah, there was some artist with a name like XKC or some name
Carly?
like that.
Is it Carly? Carly?
No, it's an unpronounceable name. And this person posted Kamala is brat with capital BRAT, and that went viral.
Implying that it's a good thing, right?
Brat, in that context, it's a good thing. It's not an insult, it's a compliment. But exactly what it's supposed to mean, I don't quite see enough examples of it.
Kayla, have you encountered that particular term?
Brat?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, not lately.
But
I'm sure if I ask my kids, though.
I'm talking about in this positive, notion where, hey, this is either cool or hip or, edgy or whatever it is that they're trying to imply with it.
Yeah, Brat summer is over, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean.
So it's popularity, things going viral that determines the new words we add to the collective vocabulary.
And
I'm trying
then
to make
their
sense of this.
lifespan seems to be curtailed because now there's so many people and the transmission of these memes is so quick that, now a week or two later, it's hip to just denigrate it. That's
Yeah,
what the
it's
guy
the
was
in group.
Exactly.
Who's the in group and who's making these decisions? It's 1984, making up new words, double speak or whatever. So
Yeah, some of it's embarrassing too.
mhm.
Like very unintelligent.
like the word woke.
Yep.
Oh yeah, woke is a crazy one.
Yeah, ghosting when it's referred to dating.
I didn't even know about gaslighting until just a couple of years ago, 2 or 3
Well,
years.
that's classical. It goes back to a play or movie from what, the 1930s, I think, or 40s.
Why not just call it lying? Isn't it just basically lying? Is there
I think
It's more subtle than that. It's making somebody believe something by feeding them plausible but incorrect information.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate.
Is that the
And that's the
Steely
name of
Dan
a,
song?
that's the name of a famous play or movie from
I think there is a movie that I've seen in association.
30s or 40s movie.
Yeah.
I
40s.
first heard it in the Steely Dan song, Gaslighting Abbey.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Okay. So
Steely
yeah,
Dan's from the 80s though, right? Man, I'm surprised I haven't heard it.
70s or 80s. Yeah, so look at the culture gaps, different, how our brains think, different, raised differently. Yeah, references that I wouldn't understand.
Yeah, speaking of which, every quote unquote internet generation has its set of apps. Like, remember, all of us who appear to be
Yeah.
like in our 40s, 50s, 60s are on Facebook. And so young kids these days say, oh, that's, like grandpa's social media, or grandparents' social media. But then
Yeah.
before that, there used to be MySpace. Remember MySpace? And
Oh
now the
yeah.
current one is what? TikTok
Yeah, I refuse
and
to go on that.
Discord and
Yeah.
Twitch
Well,
and
oh yeah,
Twitter.
Discord is being used by this conference and it's driving me nuts because I'm getting beeps all over the place. There's different channels and I'm participating in multiple
There's all kinds of
places.
bling in that interface. It's very busy.
Yeah, but I mean, if you use it like it's meant to, like a Slack, it can be useful, but people are not. But yeah, and the voice chats, I can't even begin. Yeah,
It's
so
too
like,
feature rich.
yeah, too
It's
much.
feature rich for the gaming community, but it's generally too feature rich for casual use.
Right, but apparently programmers like it for
Yeah.
discussing issues. I don't
Streamers
know
like it.
why. Yeah,
Streamers
this.
like Twitch, streamers like Discord, streamers like TikTok, streamers like, I don't know, there's a whole bunch of these.
Yeah,
These.
but if people are making their careers as streamers dependent on YouTube algorithms and people donating money to them, that's what kind of career is that really? Unless it's only the big shots who rise to the top and those who do the stuff that generates
Or
advertising.
do it as a side hustle, where you don't need it for survival.
Okay, I'll give you an example. Fran Lab, there's a woman in Philadelphia. She puts out excellent content and she's built a Patreon base. She's into audio. She designed guitar pedals at one point, and she's talking about how her things she learned from her businesses, and she does fun stuff. So she's making content for her patrons, and they're paying her monthly fee or whatever.
Mhm.
So, but she had to work really hard and things keep changing. She showed graphs where the algorithm changed and she lost monetization or whatever was going on and she's got to keep up with it. Yeah, it's a question people really coming to terms with what their life purpose is and meaning that they find in these activities. So like I'm at a point where I feel like I'm just trying to give whatever I have to whoever's interested, whatever content, links, and whoever is interested in this Apple II stuff. And there are people coming, getting really interested in it now. And they're looking at things I did 3 years ago, and I could point them to GitHubs and other stuff.
Mhm.
But is that community these days? If I'm staying home on Zoom or like this event, it's a weekend event. So yeah, it's an unusual thing. But if I get too involved in just computer stuff, then yeah, it could, I'm realizing the negative impact this could have because I already see just these 2 days myself going all over the place in my mind and sort of kind of mania is yeah that could come out of this, but I don't think I'm that serious. I just notice it.
All this talk is making me feel old
Wow.
because, I grew up in an age where I can't imagine just walking up to somebody on the street, sticking a microphone in their face and saying, "What's your body count?" And yet I see a lot of that on YouTube videos and other places these days.
What
And
does
it
that
seems to be
mean?
fine. People who are just accosted, just answer. They seemingly seem to answer.
What does that mean? What is your body count?
Oh, really? Okay. I could be wrong. Kayla will correct me, but I think that the answer is how many people have you had sex with in your lifetime?
What?
Yeah. Okay, now that just came out of the blue to
I'm only
me.
saying that because you're younger than me, Kayla. No other implication implied.
Never heard of it.
So that's the
Talk to
black
people on the street anyway, so how would I know?
book that people used to keep. It's craziness, and uh, I mean, I'm
That's
offended
not the
by
only
that,
question.
you
They
know?
ask even more intimate questions than that. And I don't know, maybe that's the acceptable thing these days.
Yeah, briefs or boxers. They asked that of Clinton.
Did you see what what that shooter said about a part of his body? Said I have a 9-inch.
Member? Yeah.
Yeah, and he's probably joking, but that was caught on video. So this is how we get information. This is what people are going to talk about, huh? Whereas, how did he get his guns? Was he connected with the FBI? Who knows what?
So when it comes to the platforms people use, there are reasons why, it's just once you got a whole base of friends and network or whatever, like, I seem to have on Facebook now, going into another platform like Discord, I'm starting from ground zero. In fact, about 3 years ago, or I started an account on Reddit. It couldn't even get started until about 6 months ago. Didn't understand it, didn't understand how to use it, didn't understand the protocols, the lifetime of things, the event model, the point model, and how people use, and the fact that people could actually vote your response down, not just up. Okay, so I didn't understand that also.
Yeah, I turned off comments on all my YouTubes. I can't deal with that. Yeah, from experience a while ago, a long time ago, I had comments on and I just couldn't deal with the volume or whatever.
Too many trolls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
too many trolls
a lot of
everywhere.
spams, a lot of, hey, come here and you'll get $1,000, and
Yeah, now it's coming through email and even text on the phone, so that's getting crazy.
so those are time sinks. Those are wastages. Oh, in fact, this past week, I got a phone call from Publishers Clearinghouse. I was the
Oh,
first person
nice.
there. Yeah.
Ed McMahon, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't Ed.
Nope, that would have been interesting. Yeah. Yeah, but you've picked a topic that's you could write a dissertation on.
I'm curious about it because I know I misfire a lot with my humor. A lot of people get offended, or a lot of people get it. What I consider, funny 10 years ago is probably now politically incorrect now.
Yeah, I had a
Oh,
friend who did the same thing. I couldn't understand his jokes, and he had Yiddish humor too. And I didn't speak Yiddish.
okay, I'm going to do something dangerous. It's a politically incorrect joke. I'm going to see if I can tell it without offending anyone. I don't think I can, but I'm going to try. And then you tell me whether or not this is politically incorrect and whether I ought to be, like put in PC jail for this. Have you guys heard about the three construction workers on a skyscraper?
No.
So the first guy says, "Oh man, here for my lunch, my wife packed me this, and I'm not going to say what this is, okay? And I'm tired of it. I had 20 years of this every single day. It's the same lunch. I'm so bleeping tired that tomorrow, if she makes me this, I'm just going to toss myself off the skyscraper." The second guy takes a look at his lunch and says, "Ah, man, I've had this also for the last 20 years. I'm so tired of this. I'm with you. If I get this tomorrow, I'm just going to toss myself off the skyscraper." And the third guy says, "Yeah, I'm with you too, because I'm sick and tired of my lunch, which I've had the same day every day for 20 years. I'm just going to go do the same thing as you guys." Okay. So the next day, sure enough, each guy gets the same lunch. And first guy, second guy, third guy, they all just jump off the skyscraper because they're so tired of their boring lunch. So at the funeral, the first wife says, "God, if I just knew that he didn't want this lunch, I would have made him something different. How come he never told me? And the second wife said, I'm with you. God never told me. I would have done exactly the same thing. I would have given him something else. And they all look at the third wife. The third wife says, why are you looking at me? He makes his own lunch. Now, usually when that's told, when I heard it, people used ethnic groups and particularly ethnic identifying foods for those lunch items. So I tried to avoid that. Okay. But at the time, I thought that was funny. So is that politically incorrect now to tell that joke?
Does it depend on whether you identify what the lunch is?
I'm not identifying that today. I'm not
Yeah,
doing it.
if you had identified the lunch, maybe it would have made a difference. But I don't know. It depends on what you would have.
Depending on the audience.
Mhm.
So yeah, so if they're people who like ethnic jokes, they would be
And there
okay
are.
with,
I know there are.
yeah,
A lot of comics are out there doing this.
right. But anything you publish publicly, you'd need a content warning on that because you're talking about suicide. So people need to know up front that,
Exactly.
yeah, content advisory.
Mhm.
And
So now I
yeah.
never tell that joke. That's the first time I told that joke in probably like a decade
Uh-huh.
because I'm doing an experiment.
And the way you did it, it lost some effectiveness. It was like, okay, I have to think now at the end a little bit about this. And I'm not sure if I still got it or not. You know.
Well,
It wasn't about the lunch. It wasn't about the particular ethnic group. It was about this twist at the end, right?
Yeah.
Twist of the lunch. He makes his own
the fact that he
lunch.
makes his own lunch sort of is logically inconsistent with him being tired of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the risk of it, I
Yeah,
heard
see
two
that.
chuckles. I didn't hear Kayla chuckle, so I guess Kayla might not have thought it was funny.
No, it was fine. It wasn't bad.
No, I really want to know whether or not this would actually fly or this would get me like, sidewalled and, jailed.
I don't know to get you jail. It's not a
Yeah,
terrible funny joke. I
it's
mean,
not.
it's cute, but it's not a rip-roaringly funny.
And another
Yeah.
thing, you're assuming husband and wife as the most common form of relationship these days. What if it was lesbians and gays up there? You know?
Who's making lunch? Yeah.
So I should have said partner maybe.
Well, it depends on your audience. So yeah, yeah. Do you have a birthing partner? It's crazy what we have to think about these days.
Mhm.
But it's people are expecting it
See,
in
this is
certain
where I'm
places.
testing because my humor definitely has crossed a line with some people. I'm sure some people will watch this and be offended. And yet some people might actually say, oh, okay, well, that's rather innocent. So I have trouble judging that.
Yeah, let's see how many YouTube comments you get.
People even watch it.
Yeah, right. Unless someone makes a short and
All
puts
right,
out just
I'm
a
going to
joke.
challenge each of you then. Tell a joke that you think is funny, that is not offensive.
It's been so long since I've told jokes.
Wow, I didn't expect it to be this hard.
Yeah, it's
Well,
like I have to now go back and think. Nothing comes to mind
Because each
right
of you know
now.
lots of jokes, right? But lots of those jokes you have to evaluate and say, geez, is this going to offend anyone?
Well, while you guys think of that, I have a question. How many of you guys are friends with someone who doesn't joke, and why are you friends with that person?
Who does not joke?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Or who possibly gets offended for the slightest things, and why are you friends with that person?
Those are long responses in my case.
Because we can all agree that humor is an individual thing, and we all have different styles and senses of humor.
Mhm.
If I'm not compelled to laugh at your, I won't laugh at it, but it doesn't mean that I don't think any of it's kind of funny. My response just isn't going to be laughter.
Hmm.
Now, I personally cannot have friends who don't know how to joke or laugh, who take things personally. I can't handle that. I have colleagues who might be that way, but I keep it completely professional. I have yet to know somebody who has friends like that, and why, like what value, it sounds kind of harsh, but what type of value does that person bring if they seemingly don't have humor in
I
their
think
lives?
their friends are other people who don't have humor.
Mhm.
Well,
And
the
who
one
get,
person who comes to mind, and I think some of you know him, on Facebook, there's a psychologist named Jeffrey Mercer, who I really like a lot. And I don't recall him being much of a humorist. He's usually pretty straight and pretty serious, but I definitely like him.
Have you ever heard Jordan Peterson tell a joke or inject humor in his speeches or
Uh,
or interviews?
I don't pay that much attention to Jordan.
I don't either. That's why I'm asking.
I don't think he's very entertaining or interesting. I think he's, what's the word I'm looking for?
Full of himself.
Well, yeah. Hubristic, maybe? That's the wrong word. I don't know.
What was that word?
Hubristic.
Oh, hubristic. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's accurate characterization or not, but
He could definitely be viewed that way, in my opinion, yes. But contrast that with somebody like Robert Sapolsky. I've listened to a number of his lectures. He does inject some humor into his lectures.
yeah, he does. Yeah.
On the other hand, I don't know that Carl Sagan ever injected humor in any of his lectures. I can't recall right now.
Yeah, probably. Well, certainly nothing comes to mind of his is that it's a repeatable joke that I can think of.
Yeah, he seems to be
Whereas Neil deGrasse Tyson is full of humor.
full of humor. He's always like, laughing at himself and,
He's very much the opposite, even though they both did Cosmos.
yeah, self-deprecating humor people can accept, because that's what I'm doing. Like in my videos, I'm making fun of myself. And in ways based on what I'm talking about, some little word thing or whatever. And I just posted a video so you could examine that and study it.
Okay. Sabine Hassenfelder, have you heard her joke around?
Well, she's quite
good.
humorous.
Yeah, she injects humor several places.
She
I
intentionally puts humor into her stuff.
and
she oftentimes has to follow it by saying that that's a joke, that don't take it seriously.
Oh yeah, these days, anything public that you put out there.
She says, I just wanted to see if you were paying attention. She'll say something outrageous and then say, I just want to see if you were paying attention.
And that brings up the question of a teacher. Can a teacher use humor with a class?
Yeah, as long as they don't make fun of the students, that's probably a no-no.
Yeah, you want to keep the kids' attention somehow. And I mean, I've noticed myself thinking about a lesson, I have to really, really think over several times. Is this appropriate or not?
I remember one time, one of the classmates had a surname that was Scandinavian. And the teacher used to refer to him as the Dutchman, just as a reference. And one time he fell out of his chair and he called him the Flying Dutchman, which was uproarious. But that wasn't deprecating. That was just, very amusing.
Yeah, people get nicknames. Sometimes they don't want those nicknames, or sometimes it sticks, and then it gets into the literature.
So in high school, my philosophy teacher, when he found out my last name, called me, you're the Han Dynasty. So he ended up calling me the Han Dynasty the entire year. Now,
the HAN Dynasty, right?
That's the wrong name.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, it's a wrong data type. That's a,
Mhm.
you know, that's a software joke.
Mhm.
So I didn't take offense. And in fact, I thought it was kind of cute that he actually put a nickname on me, but it didn't seem like it fit, you know.
Yeah, well, what's the nature of that relationship? Is he an authority figure to you and he can do that?
Yeah.
And he was allowed to do that to his students?
This is way back before most of you were born. So except for maybe Barry.
Right, but the culture of that time, it's like he had that attitude, hey, I can do this with my kid.
Yeah.
So,
And I loved him, by the way. He was a great teacher.
sure. Oh, I've had teachers, yeah.
What age?
Go ahead, Kayla.
Oh, no, the dogs. I was talking to the
Okay,
dogs.
okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
A joke that I have used on occasion, but not very often, is that if somebody like a troll is expressly insulting me, I'll conclude by saying, I'm obliged to find you in contempt of court.
Okay. Mhm. In fact, I have a name. Some of you may know him. He's come to some of these meetings. Eric, you brought him. Jack Park.
Oh, yeah.
He always talks about people not greeting him on airplanes.
Mhm.
Never do that. Because they'll say, hi, Jack. And then, of course, they'll.
Yeah,
Oh, no. So that's funny.
yeah,
Yeah, anything with wordplay.
yeah, puns and wordplay. They can be groaners or they can be very entertaining, but puns are tricky.
There's a whole category of these. Aren't they called dad jokes?
Yeah. Well, that's more than just puns, but yeah,
There's a whole bunch of them.
they're sort of lame jokes that only a child would find amusing.
But see, if you actually elicit a groan, isn't there some satisfaction there, even if it's not a laugh?
Yeah, shouted for you.
There's something about British humor that does that, like that deadpan. Uh,
Oh, that raises another point. Are we raising a population that's able to see the humor less and less? Because they don't have the breadth of
I think so.
references.
Literary puns for sure, because you don't get the literary reference that gives it the punny feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't Shakespeare have some jokes?
Lot.
He
He
had
had
a
a
lot
lot
of
of puns, and if you don't study Shakespeare, you won't appreciate the Shakespearean punny references.
Mhm. So do we need a DKR that indexes Shakespeare and shows these are jokes?
That's one layer you could put on that, right? Very
Yeah.
visible layer.
Mhm.
That's one advantage of ChatGPT is it can usually explain some literary pun that you don't get.
Yeah, that's cool. It's also a question, what does humor serve these days in our socialization? Is it
Leavening. It serves the function of leavening.
leavening? Okay. Yeah, so
But it
if
breaks
you're,
down walls.
yeah, it has, yeah, it's important with the right people.
Yeah. It's the opposite of being a matzah man.
Right.
No leavening in a matzah man.
Okay, see,
Yeah,
I didn't get that reference right away.
Yeah, well, that's an ethnic,
but,
sort of an insider reference.
but you know the song Macho Man? That could
That's
be.
the point. I want to be a matzah man.
I love that song.
And I get it now with reference to like matzo balls, but it took me a while.
Yeah, I actually wrote a song parody based on Macho Man. That was Matzah Man was the lyric.
And Alan Sherman has a song about matzo balls.
Wait, was that the YMCA group?
YMCA group
That's
was the for Macho Man. I think
Yeah.
so.
I think it was the YMCA did Macho.
Man. Right? What's the name of that group? I forget the group.
Village People.
Right.
Yeah, doing puns with lyrics and poetic references, It can leave a lot of people puzzled because they don't know the reference, but it can be very amusing if you know the reference.
Yeah, and think about kids hearing the song for the first time. They're not going to understand it, but would they have a resource to understand the lyrics, to see what did a person from the 1960s think about this song?
Yeah. There's the funny one. There's a bathroom on the right versus there's a bad moon on the rise.
Mhm.
You know, so-called mondegreens.
Yeah. And like Beatles lyrics, I'm thinking
There's a few of
this,
those too that you can
oh yeah, the references.
transcribe the lyrics. Yeah.
Yeah, you need references because there's been controversies. Okay, what does Penny Lane really talk about? What does keeping his fire engine clean really mean? You know,
Yeah, the metaphors can be quite obscure.
Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Yeah.
Yeah. Although they said that was purely an accident.
Yeah, that's yeah, Yellow Submarine, same thing. It's just a kid's song. Yeah.
Well, the implication of what it otherwise means has certainly been spread around. I heard it even when I was a kid.
Mhm.
But those kind of conspiracy theories are often just confabulations that have no basis in reality.
Right, but on the internet, they could come back and back in waves. And then, yeah, then they'll start boycotting the Beatles because of the lyrics or whatever. And there was the time when the Beatles said something about Jesus Christ, and everybody,
Ringo Starr said we're more popular than Jesus.
right? And then that caused a big controversy.
People started, breaking up their Beatles.
Yeah, breaking their records, bonfires of Beatles stuff. Yeah, so there are documentaries about this for anyone who cares to learn, but yeah, I mean it's cultural attitudes. Because I bet, yeah, the politically, depending on the party in power, they'll find things wrong, and you have to bury the past. You have to rewrite the news, rewrite history. Like 1984, that was someone's job. Okay, yeah, scrub all this. And there is something being scrubbed these days now. Kamala Harris's page on a site that tracks voting, there is detail that you cannot get to anymore. Yeah, I have a tweet about it. So there is scrubbing going on.
Oh, in fact, Gail brought this to my attention this past week, that early on in her vice presidency, when Roe v. Wade was first repealed by the Supreme Court or nullified by the Supreme Court, Kamala was interviewed by someone. I forget exactly where. And when asked what her response would be to Roe v. Wade, I believe she said, and I'm just quoting Gail because she read the article or saw the interview. She said, in response to that question to the interviewer, she said, "What would you have us do?" Which seemed like a very weak response to Roe v. Wade. And since then, it's been very difficult to find that interview. She had to search long and hard to find that interview again.
Right, but if somebody had linked it somewhere on their own personal page, they could find it and spread it around again.
But what is implied is, oh, that might have been weak. Let's take it off the internet.
Yeah, but my point, yeah, this cleansing behavior, the problem is there is good information in that resource. I saw a whole history of the bills that she supported. And yeah, there's positive stuff in there that is not going to be seen by a lot of people, where they have to search high and low. Yeah.
I was actually surprised yesterday that we didn't bring that topic up more. This whole change of nominee on the Democratic ticket only happened a week ago.
Yeah, Jerry Mikalski had a discussion about that on his OGM group. So.
Yeah. And it's actually, interesting how the media seems to be jumping on board with this. I hear very, very few references of quote unquote balanced reporting the way they used to do with Joe. Here's an opinion, here's the balancing. But now it seems to be all skewed towards Kamala's great and her poll numbers are up and, she's got the energy and, we're not going back and all this sort of thing. And it seems like hype. It seems like a hype machine. It feels like that to me. I like her much better than Trump, clearly. Okay. Let me not, indicate any lack of support there. Okay.
No, but you're very perceptive because there's got to be something going on in the media where
Yeah.
the CEO comes in and says, okay, from now on, no negative about Kamala.
Yeah.
That sort of brings up a joke about musical lyrics. The Democratic nominee would say, "Do you love me now that I can dance?" That's a lyric. That's a Beatles lyric, I think.
Oh, and his dancing video. Geez.
Yeah, because she can dance and Biden couldn't.
Come on. Let's take a look at all the videos where Trump tries to dance. Come on.
Oh, those are awful.
Can't imagine.
Have you seen them as a dance instructor, Kayla? What do you think of those? Where Trump's actually doing his.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. I won't even go there.
Please.
Just the thought of him is just disgusting. Even when he wasn't president, even when he was popular, as a reality TV person, I didn't find him attractive or fantastic or anything.
Yeah.
I was appalled that he even ran.
And now in the Epstein papers, he's referenced how many times? Dozens, if not hundreds of times in the Epstein documents that have been released. And people still don't seem to give up a hoot. This stuff would bring down anyone else. And yet they're not doing enough on this.
That's the part that's very discouraging, that he still has this popularity.
The media is complicit. It's obvious.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with that, because it sells newspapers.
So the media is no longer about truth. It's about eyeballs.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And it has been about eyeballs for a long time. I mean, some of the major TV news networks changed their news coverage to get eyeballs instead of, sort of the Edward R. Murrow, concept kind of faded in favor of stories that intrigued the viewer, even though they were kind of banal stories.
Which is structurally the whole problem once you get profit into the whole fourth estate, into the profession of journalism.
Exactly.
And have it be a, capitalized, profit-making.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday with BBC, NPR, and PBS being the alternatives, which are minority media.
And which one of them can really trust? I mean, there's the BBC, as you mentioned. There's also the other source in the UK. I read it a lot. What bleak name is it?
Not Sky. They're not. I don't know the names of the other media.
The ones that I actually like and trust now are like the Midas Touch people and Michael Prokop, I think his name is, and Brian Tyler Cohen. I think that's the another one. I think maybe still TYT, but they've gotten a little bit skewed. They've lost their true core, it seems to me. Who else? Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel.
I thought now there's talk about him retiring or being removed from that show.
Yeah,
that reference. But he was always, on target. Now, he's got a questionable past as well. But lately, I think his remarks have been spot on with Trump. And he's one of the few that actually do it. I don't like the way Colbert does it. Colbert is not serious enough, and he doesn't really nail Trump the way he needs to be nailed. But
Look, it gets trite after a while. You can't do the same anti-Trump jokes, night after night. They just become unentertaining because you've heard them all before.
There's so much fresh material every day.
Yeah, I think it's hard to be a late night stand-up entertainer to come up with fresh material every night.
They've got lots of writers, lots of contributors. So yeah, I'm even confessing, Colbert's style of humor doesn't hit me as well as Jimmy's style of humor. And I could never actually see the humor actually in Seth Meyers myself. His delivery doesn't work for me. Anyway,
They all do tend to get a bit tedious. If you watch them night after night and week after week, they do tend to get a little tedious after a while. That may be one of the reasons that Jimmy Kimmel's taken the summer off, to let, first of all, to let other people have a shot during the summer and also sort of refresh himself. But we'll see.
so I've been giving me a lot of personal likes and dislikes, maybe a little bit too much on this.
Well, there's no accounting for taste. De gustibus non est disputandum.
But it would be actually fascinating to examine it slightly. As long as we believe that, you know, everyone's got their own taste and you leave it at that, there's no deeper understanding to be had. If we dig in and say, why? Or how? Or why not? Then
So
there's
whatever tickles your fancy. You know, the Queen is famous for saying we are not amused. So,
so I think humor is a dangerous topic. I know I've crossed the line multiple times.
it's an art, and not everybody. A lot of comedians make a gaffe, and that's sort of the end of their career, or the downfall. Alan King and others, you know, had an unfunny moment, and that sort of ruined it for their career.
So I just posted in the chat the site that was scrubbed. So if you want to look at that, it's GovTrack. So they scrubbed this quote that she's the most liberal because they don't want people thinking that she's too liberal. They're trying to get the centrist voters.
Isn't AOC much more liberal than her?
I don't know. I can't compare, but see, that GovTrack site does have her voting record. That's what I don't want that being scrubbed.
Yeah. I like AOC myself. I like the fact that I haven't read it, but I believe she introduced 2 bills to impeach Alito and Thomas.
Oh yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you like about AOC that she has done from her record, from her voting?
Spoken out against corruption, that she's spoken out against the court, that she's introduced these articles of impeachment, that she's actually quite bright. She's very well-spoken. She actually goes on record on congressional sessions and calls out other.
Okay, so she's vocal.
She's sharp.
Absolutely.
She's sharp.
Yeah, she's very sharp. In fact, you know, I believe I could be wrong on this. Please verify, but I believe she won an Intel, some kind of a science contest one time when she was young. So she's definitely a very bright person, and she comes across that way. And I believe she actually probably is most aligned with Bernie, whom I respect for his long-standing position on multiple issues for 40 years. And she's the closest thing I've found in government to Bernie.
Yeah.
And yet she's got decades ahead of her. So I hope, you know, she progresses far. So I'm a strong AOC supporter.
Okay, so you think like having a woman president break that glass ceiling is needed before the younger generation can advance?
I don't think it's a requirement, but I think it's going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah, well,
I mean, Kamala's likely to do it.
well, look at the reaction that people had once Biden is out. Then they don't have to worry about his mental ability, and look at what how people are reacting, that it's younger blood coming into the system.
Well, that's also still stupid because he still has some period left to execute.
Yeah, we know that, but still, it's a change that
Does have
people
to
are
think on his
excited about.
feet. You know, sitting behind the resolute desk, surrounded by his cabinet, he can deliberate decisions instead of having to come up with an immediate proposal. He can think things through, which is important in a leader.
He's got his advisors.
Yeah,
So is Kamala, you know?
yeah, they all do. Even JFK had his advisors who weren't always giving him the best advice.
Speaking of which, how many of you guys watched Jack Ryan, the series on Prime Video?
No.
I found it entertaining. The third season in particular.
I watched it.
Did you watch the third season, Kayla?
I don't remember. It's been a couple of years.
That's
Did
the
it just come out?
that's the one centered on Czechoslovakia and Russia. Do you remember that one?
No, I don't remember that one. It's been a while.
Okay, because the first season was a Middle Eastern conflict. Second season, I think, was Venezuela. Third season was Czechoslovakia. And I haven't seen the fourth season yet.
So what does Jack Ryan do
Point
in
being
this series?
that presidents are surrounded by people who are, I mean, it's probably true, but it's also just astonishingly dangerous. Working for their own interests, providing advice, but always with ulterior motives underneath.
Mhm.
And so one of the quotes on that line was, "The worst enemy is bad advice."
Yeah, McNamara, I think, is your classical example under JFK. McNamara came out afterwards and said he gave JFK bad advice.
But then there's also that hawk. Who's that guy? The big fat guy from like 40, 50 years ago. Widely known as a hawk. That was his name.
Not sure who you're thinking of.
And I'm not even talking about Cheney. Cheney is way after this guy that I'm thinking about.
Not Omar Bradley.
No.
Which administration would that be? Carter, Nixon,
Probably Reagan's.
Reagan? Okay, so
Oh,
Newt Gingrich or
No,
no,
no.
who? No, I don't know.
the one who worked on fusion?
Not Teller.
Not Teller, okay. Because Teller was a hawk. He was a Star Wars guy. He proposed Star Wars, Teller did.
I know.
Yeah, we may need Star Wars if they keep creating space junk, shooting down missiles, shooting down satellites.
Have you seen the Japanese new railgun?
No.
That's pretty amazing if it actually works.
Hmm.
It shoots at about Mach 10.
Oh,
Oh boy.
Can you steer them when they're going that fast?
It's a good question. I only saw a short video, and it might be just propaganda. But
The problem there is that side thrusting for steering, I think, would be an issue when you're going that fast.
But you know, U.S. has been working on it for decades and never demonstrated what Japan seems to have demonstrated now.
I mean, if you want to just get them, into orbit without regard to a particular orbit, yeah. But if you need to steer them, then you got an issue. That's going to be tricky.
On the flip side, the U.S. has now a directed energy weapon. Have you seen that?
Is that a laser-based thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, high energy lasers. I guess that's a frontier that I really haven't followed.
That's a category that's interesting in my feed. Maybe I've just clicked on a few of those. Oh, I know how it's happened because I'm interested in the China-Taiwan conflict. So I look at what China's Navy is doing, how Taiwan is responding, what countries are supporting Taiwan, like Australia, Japan, US, etc. And then that gets me into all these developments in military technologies.
Yes,
Did
so
you
could
think-
you see the role of military in the diplomacy? Like how they have to position things to make it look like just to look like they could defend from whatever positions. It's really tricky how that's done.
Did you see how the Taiwanese Olympic group was introduced in the procession?
No, I didn't watch.
China-Taiwan. That's how they were
Always
formally.
a problem with every Olympics.
Yeah.
But I really lost the luster got lost for me in this whole fiasco around drug testing. China insisted on weakening the drug testing policies for athletes, and they're basically bullying other countries and the Olympic Committee so that basically their athletes don't have to be drug tested quite so so strongly. It just pisses me off.
Now, could we analyze that with game theory? That you're changing the rules of the game mid-flight? And how to get the mini-max or whatever.
On the plus side, what I'm seeing is I used to believe that China would just really quickly and easily overrun Taiwan militarily. Turns out it's a lot more complicated than that.
Mhm. Yeah, with the intelligence, they can track movements, if anything. Yeah. Yeah, it's a different game than we had World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody could be spying on each other in ways that are undetectable. It's
Oh, yeah,
crazy.
the Canadian women's something team, the captain or the Canadian coach got kicked out because he was using a drone to spy on one of the opponents' practices.
There was a situation years ago where people in army barracks, they had Fitbits and it was unsecured, and the enemies were able to track the soldiers doing their exercises.
Not sure what you learn from that that's useful.
No, but you have patterns of behavior.
Wait, I thought
You know.
Fitbits were Bluetooth and they have very limited range.
Well, there's cloud needed that has to go up to the cloud. So your cell phone has to transmit. So any cell phone signal tower transmissions, it's possible. I mean, who
But
knows
the
how?
whole cell connectivity issue. Wouldn't the Fitbit or any other data going across that channel be encrypted? It'd be stupid if not.
Yeah, I don't remember details about the story, but I did hear that it's possible. I mean, there are things that can be done with patterns of timing and usage that
Yeah, that is
people.
true. You can tell a lot without looking inside the message. You can tell about what's called
Yep,
journals of the message.
right.
Time of initiation, time of termination,
Mhm.
the location, the triangulation of where it started, all
Yep,
that stuff are the externals that are very, very valuable, independent of what's called the internals or the content of the message itself.
The
yep.
amount of data, the frequency and amount of data.
Was it 4 bytes? Was it 40 megabytes? All of that is kind of interesting.
Yep. And everybody wants data these days they just want more and more data analysis.
Yeah, but I suspect that that's more than just Fitbits. I mean, if cell phones are connecting with cell towers, it's more than just Fitbits.
Yeah, I don't know the details, but it's something I heard years ago.
Mhm.
Hi, Josh.
Hey. I started by asking about how do we use humor appropriately, but that got us all into all kinds of different side conversations. And we were
So,
talking about the Olympics, and I was
yeah,
expressing
there's no appropriate use anymore for humor.
it's
That's our
very,
conclusion.
very dangerous.
Yeah.
In fact, I can remember first time I joined one particular company, very successful back then, back in like the late 90s or early 2000s. I was called into this meetings with some senior level management. And as I do often, I start by making some lighthearted joke or some humorous joke. Dead silence. Dead silence. That told me a lot about the culture of this company. So anyway, I'm disappointed at the way the Olympic Committee got bullied by China.
The top Chinese gymnast came out on social networks to assert that he was clean from drugs because of those rumors.
Would they say anything else?
He said, he's there to compete in a fair competition, and I think he won his yesterday. I think whatever event he was in, he won the gold yesterday.
Sure, but you know, you don't verify, then you have to take them at their word. Look how long Lance Armstrong was able to get by with his claims,
Yeah,
or Russian athletes across all number of different events.
yeah. Although evidently this particular athlete or this particular group had been tested quite more than the average, according to the stories, that it was credible that they were clean.
Aren't there just two positions? Either you have to be very strict and make sure it's very fair and no PEDs involved, or you have to say, fine, use whatever drugs you want, have at it, open it up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how can you?
That's unhealthy. That's unhealthy.
Of course, but you know,
IOC could do that. That'd be very unhealthy.
100-mile marathons is unhealthy all by itself.
Yeah, a lot of these athletes push themselves to ridiculous extremes, unhealthy extremes.
Yeah, I know athletes who just simply because of training and games and just how much they put their bodies through,
Right.
by the time they're 20, they've got all kinds of injuries.
Yep.
My nieces are this way. They played college level volleyball. I can't tell you how many injuries they've each had.
Yep.
So just getting into athletes and just the stress you're putting your body under is not normal. It's obviously extreme. So do you say it's personal choice or do you say it's unhealthy?
Corporate
It's
sponsorship.
It's both.
It's about money, right? The corporate sponsors of these athletes.
People take imprudent risks all the time.
And how
Yes,
can you not? If top athletes are getting paid $50 million contracts, you know, $400 million contracts, you know, there's the incentive right there.
I don't know if you've seen the new Nike ads with the athletes, and the overriding narrative is, "Am I a bad person?" You know, and they show a bunch of athletes are doing extreme activities, and the narrative is, "Am I a bad person because I'm so competitive and I don't care about my opponent? I'll do anything to win."
What's the actual ad, Barry?
It's just it's a Nike
They
ad.
don't say, "Am I a bad person?" I'm sure there's a different phrase that's a marketing term that's sexy.
Oh, that's the actual text of the ad. It's a Nike ad that's being shown on the Olympics. I've seen it multiple times on the
The
NBC.
tagline that now goes along with "just do it."
Well, the thing is that you don't realize it's a Nike ad until the end when they show the Nike logo.
I'm saying is the word "Am I bad"? Does
No,
it say
am
the
I a
word
bad
person?
person? Literally, am I?
Right, but at the end, does it say "I am bad"?
No,
I
no. It just sort of
No?
leaves it as an open question.
was just curious because that would be a good ad campaign. Am I bad? I'm so bad.
Yeah. No.
I'm the
Michael Jackson.
Does that
Yeah,
make
well,
you a bad person? You know.
I'm
what does
referring to
bad
that
mean?
famous. Yeah, I'm bad. In other words, everything's in cycles, so they're going back to the '80s where it used to be cool to say "I'm bad."
Well, it's very clearly, "Am I a bad person?" is the line that runs through the ad.
So people do not communicate. They'll say what's on their mind. They won't think how the
You can
recipient's
probably
gonna.
find the ad. I'm going to guess on YouTube if you know what to search for. Look up Nike
Sorry,
ad.
just as a marketing guy, I love when the phrases get twisted a little bit in the next generation. They just put them back through. So,
Yeah.
like, because kids are saying "dope" for a while, and
Yeah.
I've been saying "dope" for 30 years. Then it came back into fashion, and then they were using it differently, and then it's already went out of fashion again.
I still say cool.
You say "cool"?
Yeah.
I used to say groovy.
I like groovy. I like bring groovy back. That's a good one.
I was working a crossword puzzle where the clue was hot and the correct answer was cool.
I used to say that.
That rocks. I think people still say that rocks. But rocks like fentanyl and crack rock, like dope. That rocks. That's
So
what I'm
how do we
saying. Is it
keep up?
the words can be twisted into any kind of phrasing or meaning, just like Sam's talking about.
Well, before
Yeah,
you
go ahead, Sam.
got here, we were talking about the new word
BRAT.
BRAT.
BRAT, yeah.
What was it?
BRAT, B-R-A-T, BRAT, like Kamala is BRAT.
Oh, yeah, yeah, the, okay,
What
BRAT, yeah.
exactly does BRAT mean in newspeak?
Well, that's what I mean. That's BRAT was cooked up by great marketing experts at a record label.
That
And they
works like
used the color scheme from the late '90s and
Hmm.
tech colors that were every website were those colors in simple font.
Okay, so I just looked it up. It's Charlie XCX.
Yeah,
That's correct.
that's right.
And it says the
Yeah,
girl
it's
who's a little
Succa.
messy and likes to party, who feels herself, but maybe also has a breakdown, is very honest, very blunt, a little bit volatile.
Yeah.
A little
Is
bit country, a little bit
is
rock and roll.
So it's
that
like
a rap
she's a,
artist?
I mean, I would interpret, is she a brat to the system, to the old system? Like she's behaving like a brat, so, but it's really better.
It's
a
just
compliment.
marketing.
It's a compliment the way Charlie XK, was it XKX or whatever the performer's name is?
CX.
CX?
I just put that quote in the text.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's defining a new use of that word when it's usually like a kid who's a brat. And maybe she is a kid. It's maybe people see that way. Oh yeah, she's a kid. She's not.
Pop singer.
Well, compared to the two guys who've been running up till now, she is very, very much the next.
That's a recycled thing from 30 years ago. There was a rapper named Brat, D-A Brat, Brat. So they just took off the D-A and now it's Brat. It's old tropes that they're just recycling.
And it's supposedly in all uppercase, which is sort of makes it clear that you're using it in this context.
Right. For the text generation.
Yeah.
And anyway, it's silly. It's so
So
like marketing is silly.
So you got to update your AIs for the new vocabulary to do sentiment analysis.
You got it, Eric.
So brat is now positive sentiment.
Oh, but only in that context.
Right. So how do you distinguish?
Right.
Where's the
In the 2000s, yeah, they would name the bands the name that you would search on Google in the 2000s. So if it was Pitbull, there's a lot of Puerto Rican people trying to buy pit bulls, and they go to search it up and they go, "Ooh, what's this song? Pitbull." And that's a music artist. Or what are we doing this weekend? I don't know. Let's watch a vampire movie because all those Twilight movies were out. Oh, Vampire Weekend. There you go. That would be a name of a band. How about wait? Why don't we just call the band The Weekend?
The Weekend.
The Weekend. That's a famous artist. The Weekend.
Yeah, right. Because there is no word in French, so the French word for weekend is le weekend.
Le Weekend. Then it'd be popular in France.
They couldn't find an equivalent natural word in French.
Sorry, I just work with a lot of musicians and they try to do their marketing and it's like the ones that get it become famous and the ones that don't get famous.
There's a Latin radio station that does Latin news in the Latin, and all the modern techno neologisms they just have to borrow from the current terminology. There's no classical Latin words that.
I guarantee if you made a band that came out last week called Shoot the President, it would be really famous.
The Dead Kennedys. Remember the Dead Kennedys?
There you that's exactly my point. That's it. The Dead Kennedys.
You would think that's in bad taste, but it's stuck.
Okay. But think about bad taste. Who is deciding what is bad taste these days?
And then there was Chicago Transit Authority that had to change their name to CTA because the real Chicago Transit Authority, I guess, objected to the appropriation of their name.
Pop culture is all about doing whatever gets talked about the most. If you're in marketing, if you can get people to talk about it, then you did your job.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. There's no ethics involved. Zero ethics, zero reality. Just think the Kardashians and you're successful.
Which is very sad in a philosophical sense.
So
and also very algorithmic, very web crawlery.
So what do you think about public-private partnerships between big tech and government for the purpose of censorship.
I'm a big fan of investing in the government's venture capital arm, the CIA's venture capital in QTEL. I think you should invest in them because they're going to have a lot of money to throw at the Silicon Valley companies.
So they could.
Are you guys investing in Palantir right now? Yeah. Are you guys invested in Palantir?
Never heard of
Their
it.
stock is rising. They're predictive policing software from Peter Thiel. Yeah. And he invested in two guys. One is Vivek Ramaswamy and the other is JD Vance.
Nice.
And then he got all the Silicon Valley guys to invest in Trump. So they're all investing in a moron that ran the apprentice to be president again.
Yeah, a lot of mainstream.
Yeah, I feel like
are very concerned that Vance was a bad choice.
I think anyone's going to get on with anything that they're doing because it's politics.
Politics is.
I think the world, I said this about 10 years ago. You can go back to the GCC 5 years ago, but I said this and it's happening right now. The world is splitting off into people that believe that AI thing is a good idea, robotics and AI, and people that don't. And that's the big split right now.
Yeah. Well, it's double-edged
More than
sword.
Democrats and Republicans.
It'll be weaponized. No, you know it's going to be weaponized.
You know it's already weaponized. They already put guns on those little dog robots from Boston Dynamics.
I mean, the rule of law is weaponized. You know, the justice system is weaponized. Politics is everything is weaponized these days.
So
Internet is weaponized.
would you say that AI will replace Google search, like Google search took over for a while, and would you say that the AI, getting your stuff into AI is going to be the push so that you're highly ranked? Yes, Sam says yes.
Sam says yes. And I say it already did, because if you go to Google, they did it first. They replaced Google search with AI.
Yeah, they're integrating.
It's now
AI.
Gemini.
Gemini is basically the integration of the two technologies.
When I Google search, if I
links, it gives you a narrative summary of the what you would learn if you read the first half a dozen links or so.
So the AIs will talk to each other and they'll change their algorithms on the fly. God,
it'll be more homogeneous, but it might also mean that it evolves more systematically.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just probability distributions that are going to choose what gets ranked. Versus
well, it's been that way since 2014. The AI's been ranking. They changed the algorithm for Google. I think it was Panda. So they used the AI. They got rid of Tag Manager. They still kept it around, but they weren't using it. So the people that were using it weren't getting any search engine optimization.
Yeah. And they're getting rid of cookies. I mean, cookies are essentially dead now, but Europe is behind the curve. We have all these websites with the cookie preferences, and that keeps me busy at work managing that.
But you need cookies for shopping. Any shopping website, you have to have cookies.
Yeah, it's needed, the technology, but it's the way they were used for targeting.
Oh,
yeah, so now you have to give customers a way to turn off the targeting or turn off the Google Analytics or whatever. Because in Europe, that's the law, you know. So those laws will eventually get to us.
And then that they actually do it.
What's that, Sam?
And then trust that they actually do that. They respected that choice.
Yeah, I have to do the testing that when the developer turns this off, that actually have to go into the developer tools and see, did it really delete these cookies? It's crazy and it's useless.
And what is it? Is it $2 million or I
Oh,
forgot the penalty. It's 20% of
the point is
their,
you're going to get trolls trying to get companies to sue companies saying, hey, you gave me a cookie you shouldn't have given me. And that's what,
well, they
so
have
that,
to actually, yeah, leave no trace. They have to go back in and do an audit and see if they have a trace of the
well,
person.
the point is it's a data privacy GDPR thing. So if some data subject says, I want my data deleted from your systems, well, the compliance department gets the notice, and how do you comply with that notice? It's really a headache for privacy and compliance departments.
Yeah. Yeah, excuse my attitude this morning. I'm sort of in shock because we had a huge fire come back through the same property we had a fire go through 4 years ago.
Oh, no.
So yeah, an even bigger fire started that they thought they had it under control, but the wind shifted and it just took out a few towns and it came back through our
Towns.
area. Well, small little mountain places in the Sequoia National Forest. It's
Right.
Bodfish, Havilah, and they're fighting it for Thompson Canyon, but
Mm.
it devastated. They had 1,200 people working on the fire, and now they're trying to get double that. So it just got away from them. They thought they could let it burn through the forest, and it picked up steam because we had the most water that we ever had in the last 5 years. So
The park fire?
all that water. What's that? A wildfire? Yeah, in California.
There's one called the park fire. Is that the same one?
No, that's a different one. That's another one that got away from them. It's the Borel fire is the one that hit us.
Oh. Too many
Oh.
fires.
Yeah, I'm just praying. We had a guy drive up in the middle of the fire yesterday and look around, and he said, my mom and dad built a house again, and he said he could still see their house. So the house is still there. It's burnt all around them. And most of that, I think, is because they did a lot of weed abatement and, cutting all the old trees around that little house area. There was still a couple trees, but it went right around because that place had already been burned. So it's the new growth that burned again, but hopefully it didn't burn the house. We're hoping, we're praying. So, but it was so dry we had 3 weeks of 100-degree weather, and that's what got it all super dry. So just wrong timing. If that fire just hit, a month earlier or a month later, it would have been put out. So it's yeah, I'm just kind of angry at everything. That's my attitude right now. I'm like, fuck Silicon Valley, fuck these robots. I drove my Tesla car and it drove itself and it did a good job and I got mad at it. I was like, fuck this Tesla car. It's
Can you
AI
create
is
a
too good.
can you create a fireproof
Yeah.
geodesic dome that you could stay in it while the fire goes around you?
I think I'm just gonna start just metal. I'm gonna get one of those cyber trucks that are hopefully
Yeah.
that's fireproof enough.
Mm.
So yeah. It feels apocalyptic out here in California right now with the laws changing and yeah.
What laws are
But
changing?
we'll see. Oh, they passed this law where parents aren't allowed to find out if their kids change their gender in school,
Yeah, okay, I heard that
which
one.
means it's possible that they can start the process of mutilating your child without telling you.
Mhm.
Meaning if the child says, I want a penis or I want a vagina, and they switch genders, then they can start giving them drugs and hormones and basically it's sterilization of children because
Yeah,
they're not allowed to have kids after that.
it's the puberty blockers. Yeah, it's a big controversy.
Yeah. I find that to be really scary. Like, imagine if they neuter your child.
Yeah.
They're not dogs. Spade and neuter the child. What is going on?
Mhm. Yeah, so is that from the woke ideology? Is that where this is coming from? Um,
I think it's just people being insensitive to the relationship of a parent and a child. I just think that's been going on for a while, the way they've been treating children at schools for a long time.
You know, actually, that's from like Brave New World, trying to destroy the concept of family. Like mother is a dirty word now.
I saw a joke cartoon. It was a bus, a city bus, and the label on the top of the bus said, "I now identify as a train."
Yeah, that's good humor, but that could offend people too.
Yeah, well, it's one of those ones that make you stop and think.
Yeah, right. But
I like someone with wheels on their jacket and it says identify as a transmission. It's, you gotta laugh at this stuff. It is just insane. The whole, this last few weeks have been nuts.
And then a kid goes to school, he identifies as a horse. So what's the teacher supposed to do? Feed him hay?
Rein him in. He has to rein him in.
There you go.
Gotta break them in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, seriously, teachers are asking these questions and they're not getting answers. So.
Yeah.
I'm want to be saddled with that.
I'm just I'm just hoping we can systems think our way out of a lot of this stuff. Because if everything is going AI, then there's just going to be more systems that have to be created and protocols invented and new ways of interacting with the world. So algorithmically, maybe we can put some ethics and morality back into society.
Theoretically, yeah.
You'll just look at your watch and see a social credit score going up or down based on everything you do. And then you have your bank account tied to it.
In a real world scenario at the park yesterday, I was playing with a kid and they were having fun playing, and then she climbing down the ladder at the park. So it's like a little jungle gym. She's coming down and I is trying to go up, and the dad says, no, let her, come down. And she came down, and then Aya went to go up the ladder, and the kid goes, no, my turn, and shoves her out of the way and starts going up. And Aya's like, all right, do what you got to do. She wasn't really that upset about it. Okay. But then she started picking up on the energy of that kid and started getting competitive, like she's going to climb with her. And her dad saw that and pulled her off of the ladder. And I watched Aya go, well, fuck that kid, and just started climbing up. And I went to Aya, I said, Aya, do you want to go over and help her feel better? And she said, oh yeah. And she ran over to the kid and said, I'm sorry. And then they became friends and they hugged. And it was a nice moment where I could have just let her be like, fuck that kid. Their dad pulled him off. But I said, hey, what do you want to go help out her? Because she's feeling bad and crying. And she said, yeah. And she ran over and said, are you okay? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's nice.
And then the little girl went, I'm sorry too. And then they hugged each other.
Oh.
So I just think that, they got to nip it in the bud when they're young, where they just start treating each other like assholes. So I was really proud of her for the way she treated a lot of the kids at the park, because I think that's where you learn those behaviors when you're young. Yeah, but I think we need more of that with adults. Like, I would love for Trump to just go, you know what? I was an asshole to you, Joe. I'm sorry. We've been friends for a long time. Let's go golfing. You're good too. You can golf very well.
Now, Josh,
imagine that, and then they became friends.
Wouldn't it have been great if you had a video of that situation? Like, if you had the whole thing on video, and that could be like a TV commercial. Hey, be nice to each other. So it's just whatever message. Wouldn't that be cool?
It would be great. Yeah, I saw so much. Like, I think people need to hang out at parks and watch kids play, because right now you become a pedophile if you do that and you don't have a kid. But it is really amazing to watch them learn that, because you see the kid, you could just look at the kid and see they're going to grow up to be a jerk just the way they are. And then the brother or sister is a little nicer. The personalities start to show it. Like,
oh yeah, but from what you described, you could write a screenplay for that situation and have actors play that. And,
a cartoon. Yeah,
cartoon.
Well, that's why
maybe.
parents.
I don't.
That's why parents need
Go
to
ahead,
get involved. I mean, it sounds like that dad was pretty good with trying to make sure that his daughter or son, or I don't remember, has manners. That's where
Yeah,
adults really need to take accountability. That's where we adults need to step up. And I don't understand
yeah,
why our leaders don't have to step up. And I think it comes from that old, really age old, you're a leader if you've got all kinds of money. You're a leader if you can make everybody fear you. You're a leader if everybody follows you. You get all of the idiots on your side, and you just cram all these lies in their face, and suddenly it's just a truth for some strange reason. It does start from our kids. I don't agree with a lot of the politics that are coming, with identity and stuff. I think it's really silly, to be honest, because as children, they don't know. Everybody's experimenting when they're that age. They don't know, what's up their ass half the time. I'm still going through that preteen with my son where he's acting like a little asshole, but he's just neurologically breaking down and trying to gain independence. But it's us adults that have to really clamp down and say, oh, no, you're not going to cut off your private parts until maybe you're like 25, but you have a little bit of wisdom, in you, when you've gone through a few things, when you've worn your dresses at 11 years old and decides you want to wear pants now. It's just ridiculous. I don't understand why everyone's blaming everybody and why things are the way they are. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of going off just listening to all of this because, again, that's part of my profession, is to advocate for children and to advocate for children and parents, and it starts with the parents. It really does. You have to teach parents and children in parallel these days, and it's tiresome and ridiculous. Anyways, sorry.
I remember my mother when
don't
we
apologize.
were 6 or 7 years old, and she spoke of having manners, but she never defined the word. And she kept using this word manners. I had no idea what the word meant because it was never defined.
I feel
Yeah.
bad within my own dance group. I mean, growing up with the Polynesians, they really, respected and held the adults to a higher standard. And so with my own dance group, these kids are fucking running around, and I'm sorry, I love kids, don't get me wrong, and I get they're at the age where they're at, but I get so angry because it's like, well, hey, I'm allowing your kids to come to class, and they are going to learn by coming to class, but they're going to learn more than just dance. They're going to learn how to respect your elders. They're going to learn how to respect each other. Single parents is an opportunity for them to be able to do a little bit for themselves while they're watching their kids, and everyone's able to learn. But some of the moms are just so like blasé about it, like, oh, okay, it's okay for my kid to run around and destroy things. No, it's not. And if I'm going to be the one that's disciplining your kid, it's not a good thing. Especially when we're getting all touchy with other adults disciplining other kids. So then I tell my dancers, like, hey, you guys really have to discipline your kids, because if you don't, I will. And if I will, you're going to get mad. And I don't want that to happen. And if I don't want that to happen, I'm just going to tell you not to bring your kid. So how do you say that without offending people, without their cultures or their backgrounds or their triggers get in the way?
You have to set your boundaries, and it has to be clear, very clear to them, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the agreement, like you're saying, Kayla, is if you're going to do it, they need to be in agreement that they trust you, and whatever you do, they say, hey, we know you're going to do it right, so go ahead and discipline the kids. Or if they say you cannot, then you're right, they can't bring their kids, because you can't do your job if you're not allowed to discipline the kids at the class.
It's just like the education, I think last week when we were talking about like emotional education and everything, I mean, it has to continue, not just from when you're a kid, or if you're training to be a teacher, or if you're training to be with, working with children. It has to just be straight across the board, in my opinion. If I were to revamp some portion of the education system, I would allow emotional intelligence to be an ongoing thing. Because I went to Disneyland with my friend and her son, and she's got a form of ADHD, which is another thing. If the parents have it, or if the kids have it, most likely the parents have it. So she was running her son ragged, and I said, hey, let me take your ADHD son, and we're just going to go take a nap. We're going to go relax at the pool. We're going to eat, and we're going to take a nap. And boy, was he such a good kid after that. I mean, it's probably because he was hanging out with me, but at the same time, it's like, if you don't allow yourself some space, and pay attention to, your kid might actually need a break instead of your wishes, it's got to be a give and take. So there's just like so many things when it comes to parents and children. So, okay, I'm going to stop going off. Continue. I apologize.
No, you're saying very important things. People need to hear this more.
Yeah. I think we need to take a moment as adults to be kids again and get retrained. Like, I know I do. I'm just speaking for myself, is that I need to stop and go, wait a second, why am I emotionally getting triggered by these things? Oh, wait, I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm sad. I'm angry at the fire. Like, what's going on with me? Yeah.
Yeah, that self-reflection, very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what adults can teach each other and their kids too.
Yeah. It's just taking a nap, like you said, like a lot of times we're tired, we're exhausted, we're trying to do work when we're tired.
When I was growing up, the word I kept hearing was self-control. That's what everybody wanted their kids to have.
Right.
Yeah.
But then I guess that led to too much control, and then there was rebellion against that. I mean, you have to look at the generations and even the technology influencing the generations.
If you think about positive masculinity, that's where I based, I felt like manliness is measured by self-control. Leadership, in my opinion, is measured by self-control too.
I'm a big psychological proponent of like a Carl Jung with like the introvert and extrovert, is that we have this like inner world that we have for ourselves and then the outer world that we project to others, and the balance of those two, like much like a yin yang balance, meaning sometimes how we feel isn't what we say because we're trying to do that self-control. In other words, we're really pissed off, but we're not going to tell anyone. We're going to act cool and calm. But then if you hold that in, it explodes out later.
It's all about balance. You have to have the balance, and
exactly.
It's tricky for people to get.
Yeah.
This word alexithymia?
No.
Alexithymia is a word that was coined by a Harvard psychologist. It means you're in a particular affective emotional state, but you don't know the vocabulary word that names it. So you can't say what state you're in. I'm
always in that state.
Yeah. How you feel? I'm feeling a little alexithymic, thank you very much.
Yeah, I've got my own internalization, but I don't know what word to say.
But it's a very useful concept of not having the vocabulary to characterize what state one is in.
What if you just said, Barry, I don't know? How do you feel? I don't know.
Well, that pretty much, I don't know how to, don't know how to say it. That
would be really honest.
I mean, if you watch these interviews with these athletes on the Olympics, and the interviewer says, how do you feel after your performance? And you think that's a really hard question to answer because your emotions are really complicated. And what's the vocabulary term that would accurately name my emotional state? And often there really isn't a good one.
But
I love that idea. I'm going to start telling people to say, I don't know, until you've processed your emotions, because you won't know maybe till a couple of days later.
It's not that you don't have emotions, you simply don't know how to articulate it in English.
Right. Because they're all coming at once. Sometimes the emotions, you're feeling relieved that you accomplished it, you're happy, but then you see them cry because they're sad that they put in all that work and it's like they just did it. I mean,
I have mixed feelings, but what are the names of the mixtures of the feelings? They don't. It's just a mixed set. I don't know the names of the components of the mixture.
But see, in
Yeah.
that situation, they're supposed to say whatever's going to get the most likes and clicks for their advertisers. That's
Right.
what they're
And
right?
eventually it motivates you to learn the names of emotional states so you can say them.
No, they have to have a script. Oh, I feel wonderful that this blah blah blah. Yeah.
Well, what is
And
the
that's
term, Barry,
skill. Yeah.
for accurate honesty of emotional state projection? What is that term? Is there a term for that?
Say the question again.
A term for figuring out your alexithymic state.
Oh, for recognizing the correct term for your emotional state, it's emotional intelligence. It's the vocabulary. It's like in any discipline, you have to have the right nomenclature. Like in electronics, you have to know the names of the parts, or else you can't describe, some technology system. And for affective states, it's learning the names of the states. If you read poetry and literature and something, you'll eventually pick up the vocabulary. But there really isn't a discipline or a subject matter in public school where they teach you a vocabulary, dictionary terms for emotional states. Although, like Sesame Street, they teach you the basic ones. The characters talk about, the primary colors of emotions, but the secondary, tertiary colors, they're very obscure terms. It takes a long time to learn them and to bring them forward to say, oh, I'm vexed and perplexed. It took me decades to be able to say I'm vexed and perplexed, even though that was the correct name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really powerful, actually. It's like, yeah.
It needs to be taught on the playground in those situations.
In the boardroom. And in the boardroom.
Learning
first on the playground.
The name of emotional state in vocabulary terms which are understandable by your audience. They're not so obscure. So if I say, well, I'm feeling alexithymic, the average person wouldn't even know what I said. They wouldn't know this word. But it means I couldn't tell you the name of it because I don't know the correct name of the term.
Remember there was a chart that had different faces with different expressions and a word underneath it. Yeah.
And a lot of those cartoon faces, you go, what's the name of that state? And if you didn't read the legend, you wouldn't know, how to characterize it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got to be taught very young. You need parents spending the time with kids to do that.
And I grew up in a culture where they simply didn't teach the names of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It was simply taboo to talk about emotion states. That was considered rude.
And sometimes,
Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Okay, and there are certain situations where you need to feel the emotion and suppress it because of you need to be on your game, like a technical problem. Like I could feel angry at my boss, but I can't. I have to focus on what needs to get done.
Who among us can say, I just felt a cortisol surge?
Mm-hmm.
How many people would know when you're experiencing cortisol surge to call it that? And what would you call it if you didn't know the name of the neuropeptide that's surging? It's endorphin rush, a cortisol rush.
What
adrenaline
you just
rush.
said is that's what I'm most afraid of, is that the future it's flashing on your forehead, like it's in your glasses. So you're no longer telling people your affective state. The computer is telling you because of what it censored of your affective state. So it's getting it wrong. We're going to move into a really interesting time because that's happening quickly. That is going to be, they're just the new earbuds for Apple are doing what the watch does, is it's taking temperature readings in your ear and doing fitness, type of readings that can.
And what's really dangerous is the eye tracking technology and the vision headsets, because they need that information, but there's so much that could be gained from what you're focusing on, where you're gazing. And even like walking, there's gait detection. It's crazy. And Microsoft, they've been studying this for years. They've had kids as guinea pigs with all these learning systems. It's really, yeah, we built a technocracy.
Yeah, I can see, you're going to the movie theater, go to get your ticket, and the person that's giving you the ticket is an AI. So it's just a screen with a avatar on it. And it asks you a question, and then the sensor from the camera, because now it's multimodal with the AI, it's reading your face, and
Yep.
it says, "Oh, you are not in a state to come and be in public right now. We need to move you to the side. Please step aside." And then if not, a robot will escort you to the side out of the line if it doesn't feel that you're. I mean, that's very possible that this, I know it sounds
Well,
dystopian, but
it was tested with COVID. They had the temperature
yeah,
sensors and yeah, whatever tests they were using. Yeah, you're not allowed to be in public today.
but if they're tracking cookies and tracking where you're going online, they can also track who you like. I have an app called Clubhouse,
Mhm,
and the app shows at the bottom who the person was talking to recently.
mhm.
So then you can see the social credit score and the social emotional score of those people. So it will say,
Yeah, bye, Kayla.
"Oh, bye, Kayla. If you've been talking to these people and you're in this emotional state, then you're not allowed to come into this conversation."
Mhm. Yeah, the big data, making inferences with all the data collection and who has that data. Is it
Yeah,
Facebook has it the best or Google has the best? Yeah, you know.
yeah. Well, social audio is a whole nother set of data, the tone of voice and the recording of that voice. That's a
So
whole nother subset of metadata
yeah,
to
yeah,
pull
who
up.
knows if the phone's recording us right now? Who knows?
That's sentiment analysis. Can you infer the sentimental state of the person without them actually expressing it and confirming it?
Well, you know that with kids in schools, they had galvanic skin response sensors, and that was used for a long time to see
Mood rings. Remember mood rings?
well, yeah, but seriously, give a kid a test on a computer and measure the galvanic skin response to see, yeah, how are they feeling
Anxious.
about that test
Yeah.
question?
Recognizing anxiety or
Yeah, but it was correlated to, there's studies out there. It's just scary what was done.
Well, when
And
you ask, do we know if this is being recorded? We know not only is it recorded, it's being AI real time tracked because we all agreed AI companion is on.
okay, so China is recording the whole Zoom. Yeah, they could do whatever they want
and
with
they're
it
bored
now.
to tears with us, probably.
These Americans. Look at that. Yeah, that flag over there.
No
These
useful
crazy.
information here.
Yeah, plotting the future takeover.
These guys are not a threat to us.
Oh no, we're gonna get into conspiracy theories.
It's not a conspiracy theory if it's a conspiracy.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's very hard to prove, to get
It's pretty
confirmatory
easy to
evidence.
prove. It's pretty easy to prove if you do the money trail follow. Who is
Yeah,
benefiting
yeah, follow the
financially
money.
from
Follow the
these?
money is a good tactic
Yeah.
for Watergate. Follow the money.
Actually, I got to get going soon too.
Yeah, it's the second
All right,
hour.
Eric.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Enjoy your
Cheers.
Yep, I'll be on.
presentation today.
Yep, see ya.
Good luck.
Bye. Bye.
What else, Sam? Anything else you want to get into today's session in the last minute and a half?
Well, I always like to rope it back to the original question, which is just how to learn the skills around appropriate humor, which still seems like a very big topic.
I think it's hard. I think understanding humor and what makes humor work and not, that's a skill that is why there's so few people who are really good humorists.
If you're really interested in this subject, Joe Rogan has been on this topic for about 6, 7 years, and all the comedians that come on, he asked that question, but in a roundabout way, meaning, have you found a time where your humor was inappropriate? And they tell stories as comedians going on stage, and there's tons of stories about this joke worked in Kansas, but it didn't work in Tennessee. This joke worked in California, but it didn't work in Texas, and vice versa.
I think it's a very
And,
hard subject to have any deep insight on.
It's hard.
Well, it's worth pushing on, but you're not going to solve it. We're not going to solve it in one session. So I'm satisfied with our treatment so far.
I mean, there are people who've written treatises on humor. Like you can find books and articles on what makes humor humorous, but I don't know.
think the answer is it's from being a comedian myself, it's subjective, and you have to read. There's that read the room situation. It's inappropriate in one room, but it's appropriate in another room. And then what I've heard a lot of comedians like Dave Chappelle say, he's one of the top, won the awards and honors for top comedian. He says you are going to offend at least 40% of the people. So if it's if you're offending anyone, you'll offend anyone in the room if it happened to them. If it didn't happen to them, people like to laugh. Like if you didn't fall down the steps, if you fall down the steps, it's not funny to you because you got hurt, but everyone else in the room can laugh their ass off.
Yeah, slipping on the banana peel funny.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that most people will not become very adept at being able to generate functional humor most of the time. It's quite an art. And even the best of them screw up, get in trouble.
Yeah, the best comedians try to offend everyone in the audience equally.
Yeah. I mean, Saturday Night Live is probably a good place to examine it, humor that works and humor that falls flat or offends people. It gets negative feedback. There's a lot of negative feedback. People even supposedly get fired from SNL because of some of their sketches that they do.
Norm Macdonald.
For one, I think he's more than one who's sort of been swept aside for bad humor. From the hook.
Yeah, Shane Gillis. Did you guys follow his career?
No.
He was the gentleman in 2020 that got put on the SNL cast, and he was going to be in the next season, and then they fired him right before the season started because they found jokes on a podcast about Asian people. And so he got fired, and then fast forward 4 years later, he's hosting SNL.
Yeah, when you can laugh about your own misadventures, I think that's a good thing, to be able to make fun of your own misadventures. Then you're sort of back in again.
Yeah. Yeah. Good topic, Sam.
I think there's a lot more to be discussed, but I'm happy we got something out of it today.
All right, so see you next week then, I guess, huh?
Okay, ta-ta.
Ta-ta.
Cheers. Enjoy the Olympics, Barry.